So I got hit yesterday, full in the face with a basketball. And it was an accident. It was during warm up, and I was sitting behind one of the baskets. So it wasn't intentional, but it kind of felt like being in a car wreck, and I've been in several of those. So I was very surprised at how literally jarring it was to me. I did have like the bloody nose, and I was dealing with that at first. But what ended up being really interesting to me was this has kind of been the first time I'd experienced something to this degree that wasn't attached to an event with a lot of meaning or emotional context. So it wasn't like, oh, I've been assaulted by my partner, sarcastic quotes, and then therefore I'm feeling all of these like sad emotions as a result. I'm crying a lot, etc. So it wasn't in that kind of a context, and it wasn't like, oh, my car's just gone off a bridge, because I've had that before. My car's just gone off a bridge, and so now I'm in shock, and also everything's destroyed, and there's like a whole lot of emotional, tenor around that. This was just, I'd been hit in the face with the ball and I handled the blood, and then it's like, okay, but I'm trying to concentrate on the game. And so I was able to kind of like feel that injury without anything around it, and it just in its isolated sense. And guys, I don't think victims of abuse are taking the physical injuries as seriously as we should. I was shocked. I was shocked at how much it harmed me. The headache, the inability to think coherently, the shock of it all, and I thought, okay, well, I'll take an ibuprofen, and then I'll be fine, or I'll go to sleep and then I'll be fine. And it was sustained. And what it was really surprising was how much it reminded me of when something like this had occurred and I'd been crying a lot. I had always thought, oh, if you cry a lot, you get a headache, and I think to a large extent that is also true, because when you cry a lot, you're dehydrated. And it very significantly reminded me of being hung over or being dehydrated, having cried a lot. And I wondered how much of the emotional response that we have masks to us as a victim the seriousness of the injury that's just occurred to us. So victims, they might be slapped by an abuser and think, well, it's not that serious because they didn't punch me. Or you might get punched by an abuser and you think, well, it wasn't that serious because they only did it once. Or you're more focused on how could this person harm me, or whatever it was that was the topic of their irate rage response toward you. They might just grab you by your shoulders and shake you back and forth. But yet, if we think about it, if you do that to a baby, you end up with shaken baby syndrome. And it can kill children. It can cause brain damage. It is not safe, right? We've got our neck, our spinal column is very delicate. The brain sitting inside of our skull is very delicate. And so when you're moving that head back and forth in quick directions, you get that whiplash. The brain is, I mean, there's some buffer, but there's still damage occurring. There's still contact probably with the skull. Again, I'm not a medical professional. This is my understanding of it. If someone chokes you, we think, oh, well, maybe they just surprised me in the middle of a sex act with it. And, everyone's doing it now and it's not that big of a deal. Oh, choking is cutting off your oxygen supply to your brain. And the traditional caveat or caution for people is that no amount of choking is safe choking. And I know that people in the kink communities really push back on that because they, when we like something, we don't like to give up a toy and we don't want to think it's dangerous. So you get a lot of pushback on that. But even in a quote unquote kink context, it's still, there's not really a safe way to achieve that lightheaded feeling without cutting off the blood supply. So I just wanted to do a video basically talking about like, okay, if this person has hit you and then you cried a bunch, you might not recognize that a lot of the physical feeling that you're feeling is actually harm to you and your brain. I'm actually a paralegal, and I've spent a lot of my career looking at medical records and whiplash, head injuries, head trauma, traumatic brain injury. So your, TBI or CTE. And, even if something doesn't cause a significant amount of brain trauma at first, repeated incidences of that violence to your brain, it adds up. And then the thing is, you're in an abuse context, an abuse dynamic with someone who is not a reliable narrator, but they're causing you brain damage as they further injure your brain. And the thing is, you can also get this from, high uses of substances and alcohol. You can get like repetitive brain damage. And so you get to a point where you start to not remember things and you think, well, okay, this other person seems to remember. Maybe they're correct. And it could literally be that their violence against you is causing accumulated brain damage and that it's being masked by the crying, or it's being masked by the significant emotional response to what is truly a terrible thing, probably that happened to you. It's not neutral. It's not safe. Anyone who's doing these things, you don't have to know that what happened. You don't have to be certain that they did something bad to you. You don't have to go, oh, well, I can't trust myself or my gut because I don't have a solid memory. I don't have a significant memory for the majority of my childhood. And in fact, I have more memories of my brother's abuse than I do of my own. In fact, I actually submitted an article to my middle school. It was like a literary magazine. I submitted an article based off an actual incident that had occurred, and I still have it. And I can't believe not one adult was like, there's a problem here. But anyway, you don't default to being wrong if you can't remember, because a lot of the impacts of abuse are going to be cumulative, especially in terms of your memory. If they're compromising your ability to sleep, if they are hitting you, even if it's slapping, just light slapping, it seems like not a big deal. You're not getting punched. It is a big deal. It's moving your brain around in your head. That can cause brain damage, especially cumulative over time. Same thing for choking. Same thing for yanking you back and forth. It's not safe. Our spinal columns also, not to mention, as you experience all of the emotional responses to being abused, but you can't express them because you're in this abuse dynamic. So, victims will push it down and just so they can keep on going. And that can lead to chronic injuries, chronic pain. Being in an abuse dynamic is not good for your health. I had a woman that I was helping who was homeless, and she was, trying to get it out of this abuse dynamic. And she said to me one night, she's like, I literally cannot do this anymore. I cannot physically continue to heal from what this person is doing to me. I don't heal like I used to. And part of it for her is going to be the drugs and the fact that she's on the street and maybe doesn't have access to like good nutrition. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that she was getting older. And you don't want to be in an abuse dynamic with a person when you're older. The memory already might be not great. And then you add on all of the other layers of the way that this abuse impacts who you are and what you remember. And the less you remember, the more credibility you give to this other person, and the less you can trust them, even though you don't recognize that they're not a person you can trust. Hopefully on some level you do. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.